Look closely with me at this incredible torso. In this painting, it's a combination of classical and Baroque. To the modern eye, it's an undeniable celebration of the male form, voluptuous, soft, intimate, and deeply sensual. If you saw this aesthetic in a luxury studio portrait today, you'd recognize the language of desire instantly. But if you ask a traditional art curator standing inside the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, where it is, they'll tell you that this is a masterclass in holy, spiritual purity. They'll tell you it's just a standard 17th century myth painted by Guido Reni, the most pious, celebrated, and highest paid golden boy of the Catholic Counter-Reformation. And they're missing the real story. For centuries, mainstream art history has kept a massive curiosity gap wide open regarding the man the public called the Divine Guido. Because when you bypass the official church propaganda and decode the specific, highly unusual way this man painted the male body, a thrilling psychological mystery unfolds. He wasn't just painting gods or saints. He was, in fact, executing a dangerous, high-stakes underground operation right under the nose of the Pope's Inquisition, leaving a trail of coded desire on canvases all across Europe. Today, we're going to crack the code on the forbidden anatomy of Guido Reni. To understand why this painting feels so electrically charged, we have to look at the ancient Greek heartbreak drama happening on this canvas. This is the story of Ariadne, the princess of Crete. After helping the hero Theseus slay the Minotaur, she gave up on everything for him, only for him to brutally abandon her, leaving her stranded on the desolate volcanic island of Naxos. Reni captures the exact moment of ultimate transition. Ariadne has just woken up to find herself entirely alone, but as she swoons in grief, a sudden presence appears from the sea. It's Bacchus, the god of wine, ritual ecstasy, and theater. Reni codes the storytelling through classical symbols. Ariadne sits stranded on bare, unforgiving rock, her golden drapery pooling around her like a life already discarded, the last trace of the mortal world she's about to leave behind. But Bacchus brings rebirth. He wears a crown of ivy leaves, the timeless symbol of vitality and eternal youth. In the upper right sky, Reni paints a cluster of faint, delicate gold stars. That is the Corona Borealis, the northern crown. According to the myth, Bacchus takes Ariadne's mortal crown and flings it into the heavens, transforming her into an immortal constellation. But to see how truly radical Reni's staging is, we have to compare it to how the story was supposed to be told. A century earlier, the high Renaissance master Titian painted the exact same scene in his legendary Bacchus and Ariadne that hangs in the National Gallery in London. Look at Titian's version. It's an absolute explosion of hyper-masculine, aggressive, alpha energy. Titian's Bacchus is an athletic, muscular action hero leaping wildly out of his chariot, muscles strained, cape flying, literally flying through the air to claim his prize, while a chaotic, rowdy crowd of satyrs and cheetahs storms the beach. It's a scene of raw conquest and explosive heterosexual dominance. Now, let's look back at Guido Reni's in the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, the subject of our essay today. The contrast is jarring. There's no chaos at all, no cheetahs. Bacchus isn't conquering anyone. He's standing completely still, almost tentative, almost conquered. His posture is vulnerable, putting his entire idealized body on display for her and our approval. The power dynamic is completely flipped. The male god is presenting his body as an offering to a mortal woman's gaze. This is where the technical subversion begins. Reni's execution of this male body is completely unique, subtle, and intensely tactile. First, look at what is missing. In traditional art, and especially in Titian's muscular figures, artists heavily emphasized the external obliques and the iliac crest, what modern fitness culture calls the V-cut, or Apollo's belt. It's the line of physical labor, aggression, and traditional warrior masculinity. Reni completely erases it. He intentionally rounds and softens the transition from the ribs to the waist. The abdomen doesn't look hard-packed or strained. It flows smoothly with almost no sharp, jagged lines. He strips Bacchus of macho grit and replaces it with a softer, yielding, distinctly voluptuous and appealing torso. It's an anatomy designed for luxury, pleasure, and touch, not for combat. And second, look at the flesh itself. Reni used a highly sophisticated thin glazing technique. Instead of using blocky, harsh black shadows to define the muscles, like you see in other Baroque works, he uses a cool, almost bluish-gray undertone overlaid with a translucent, pearlescent, warm glaze. It creates a stunning optical illusion. It looks like light is passing through the skin, mimicking the warmth of blood circulating just below the surface. It makes the flesh look radiating and alive. And then there's the detail that breaks all the rules. That realistic patch of hair in the pubic region. Ancient Greek and Roman statues, which Reni was obsessed with copying, always omitted or highly stylized this region into bloodless, abstract curls. Smoothness symbolized abstract asexual reason. By painting soft, realistic, post-pubescent body hair, Reni shatters the classical illusion. He flesh and bloods the god. He makes Bacchus texturally and physically real right under the nose of a deeply conservative public. And there's one more anatomical choice that trips people up and I'd like to mention. The modest, understated proportions of his male anatomy. To modern eyes trained on the hyper-masculine imagery, it can read as a bit strange, even perhaps a mistake. But it isn't, and it's also not how the model actually would have looked. Reni here is following a strict rule from the ancient statues he idolized. In Greek and Roman sculpture, restraint and self-control were coded onto the body through scale. Gods and heroes were given small, at-rest proportions to signal reason and command over one's own desires. Only base, animalistic figures, satyrs, fauns, creatures of pure appetite, were given exaggerated or even realistic ones sometimes. So this isn't Reni softening Bacchus by accident. He's quoting the oldest visual language in Western art for, this is a civilized god, not a wild animal, and he's doing it on purpose, right down to the smallest detail. Before we continue, if this painting speaks to you the way it's spoken to me, you don't have to just admire it in a museum or on your screen. You can actually bring it into your own home. I've had this exact image reproduced and all of the drawings and paintings that I talk about in my videos in the highest quality available. Museum-grade giclée prints, sturdy gallery canvas or fully framed and ready to hang. And no matter where you are in the world, shipping is completely free. The link is right below this video. Just click away. And if you've ever wanted a piece of art history looking back at you every day, this is your chance to actually own it. Let's continue. If you think Bacchus is a fluke, you only have to look at the rest of his career to see the pattern. Reni did this everywhere, establishing a dangerous habit right under the nose of the Inquisition. Look at his famous Saint Sebastian in Rome. The saint is being actively shot to death with arrows, but there's no blood, no grimace of agony. Instead, his body is a flawless, hairless column of pale flesh. His head's tossed back, his lips are parted, his eyes are rolled up in an ambiguous state of ecstatic surrender, while his loincloth defies gravity, slipping low enough to frame the entire pelvic region. When he paints St. John the Baptist, who's supposed to be starving, a rugged hermit wearing rough camel skins in the desert, Reni turns him into a glowing, muscular youth lounging luxuriously in the woods, his robe accidentally slipping entirely off his hip. Even when he paints Jesus in Christ embracing the cross, there's no trauma. Christ stands with towering, athletic grace, leaning against the cross as if it's high-fashion prop, flaunting an impossibly pristine, touchable physique. To a mature eye, the pattern is undeniable. The holy and mythological stories are just a cover. The real obsession is the body. So what does this highly specific mix of intense aesthetic adoration, hyper-feminized male forms, and absolute passivity tell us about the real psychology of the man behind the brush? Well, contemporary biographers paint a bizarre picture of Reni. He was a total hermit, fiercely superstitious, and had a deathly, almost pathological phobia of women. He wouldn't let them near his clothes or his home. Yet, he painted men with an intensely tender, feminine grace. Psychologists and historians are divided into three fascinating theories. Theory number one, the closeted desirer. This is the hidden gay reading. In an era where exposing your sexuality meant death, Reni's canvas was his only safe space. Because he couldn't live openly in the real world, he poured 100% of his suppressed sexual and romantic energy into his paintbrushes. He blended the feminine grace he found aesthetically beautiful with the male anatomy he found compelling, creating a safe, idealized man he could look at and touch with his brush without triggering the Inquisition. Theory number two, the trauma response. This theory suggests it wasn't about orientation, but an extreme coping mechanism for his severe misogyny. Because actual women and female biology terrified him as symbols of sin and danger, he completely banished female energy from his own life. But because he still deeply craved softness, vulnerability, and elegance, he mapped those exact feminine traits onto the male models. He created a passive, non-threatening male form to soothe his own deep-seated anxieties about the world. And then there's theory number three, the asexual mystic. The traditional theological reading argues that Reni may have been entirely asexual, living a life of total virginal chastity. By merging masculine strength with feminine softness, he wasn't trying to create an erotic object. They say he was trying to paint what the church called the angelic body, an androgynous, heavenly form that exists entirely above human sex, gender, and sin. He was painting, they say, a universe where desire didn't exist at all, because desire was the very thing that terrified him. So whether Guido Reni was a closeted homosexual, a repressed bisexual, or a traumatized mystic running from his own mind, the final conclusion is still profound. 400 years ago, a man who was too afraid to live openly in the real world used his art to completely rewrite the rules of gender and desire. He took his deepest, most complex inner thoughts and hid them in plain sight on the most public walls in Europe. So the next time you stand in a museum like the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, looking at a pristine classical painting like this, look past the holy names and the ancient myths. Look for the hidden details, because you might just be looking at the safest sanctuary a beautiful, repressed mind could build. The only place where his forbidden truth was allowed to live forever. What do you see when you look at Reni's anatomy? Let me know in the comment section. And don't forget to check out my store. Click the link in the description. And you can have this painting in your own home to look at every day and know the truth.